Welcome in the 8th episode. Today we're going to continue implementing our grid. So we're going to display in this episode, we're going to finally display all of the grid in our board. So in the last episode, we have left off in implementation of our words grids class. So let's quickly open our words grid and let's go back to our spawn grid squares function. So the last thing in the episode number 7, we have added the square list. We have instantiated our square prefab. So let's switch to our grid square and let's actually implement this class first. I will just first of all remove all of the comments, and then let's add few variables. So first one will be public int, and I will call it square index. And this is gonna have a property get and then set. And let's add some private variables. So private alphabet data dot letter data, and this is gonna be the normal letter data. Another will be private alphabet data dot letter data, and this is gonna be the selected letter data. And then private alphabet data dot letter data, and this will be the correct letter data. Okay, and then let's add some capture the sprite renderer. So private sprite renderer, and I will just call it displayed image. Okay, then in our start function, let's actually capture the displayed image. So displayed image is equal to get component sprite renderer. Okay, so we're going to capture this component. So actually we don't need the update function in this class, so let's remove it. So below the start method, let's add public void set sprite, and we want to pass the alphabet data dot letter data, and it's going to be the normal letter data. Then alphabet data dot letter data, and it's going to be the selected letter data. And then alphabet data dot letter data, and this is going to be the correct letter data. Okay, so this is all value we need to pass to this function. And then let's actually set our private variables with these variables which we pass. So normal letter data will be equal to normal letter data, then selected letter data is equal to selected letter data, and then correct letter data is equal to correct letter data. Okay, and then we want to do the get component sprite renderer dot sprite is equal to normal letter data dot image. Okay, so at the beginning we're gonna display the normal images. So let's save everything now, and now let's go back to our words grid class, and in our spawn grid squares, where we actually spawn our grid square prefab, we want to set the sprite. So square list at square list dot count -1 dot get component, and we want to get the grid square component dot set sprite. So we want to set our sprite with this data. So we want to pass the normal data, then we want to pass the correct data, and then we want to pass the selected letter data. Okay, and then we want to set a parent for this component. So I will call square list, again at square list dot count -1 dot transform dot set parent, and we want to set parent to be this dot transform. Okay, and then we want to set the position, so I will just copy the square list, this part of code, and then paste it below, and then put dot get component, and we want to get the transform component dot set position, is actually position, will be equal to new vector 3, and we want to pass the 0f, and then 0f. Okay, so we just want to reset the position, and next we want to set the square scale. So I will just copy this part of code again, paste it below, dot transform dot local scale will be equal to square scale. So this function is now completed, the spawn grid squares. We need to call this function now from our start function. So let's copy this function and call it from the start function. And now we need to implement just one more function in this class to actually set all of the positions for our squares. So I will put in the start function set squares position. Okay, and let's implement this function below the start method. So I will put the private void set square position. Okay, and this function will just loop through all of the squares and then set the position for them. So first of all, let's get the square rectangle. So var is equal to square list at 0 dot get component sprite renderer dot sprite dot rect. Okay, and then another variable will be var square transform will be equal to square list at 0 dot get component transform. Okay, so we're going to capture the square rectangle and then transform, and then var offset is equal to new vector 2. Okay, and we can just delete these two braces and put this curly brace, and now we can set the member of the vector 2 by calling x, which is the member of the vector 2, is equal to open brace and then square rectangle dot width time square transform dot local scale dot x plus square offset, and then times 0.01f. Okay, and then we want to do the same. It actually should be comma at the end, and we want to do the same for the y. So y is equal to square rectangle dot height times square transform dot local scale dot y plus square offset, and then times 0.01f. Now below this offset, let's put the var start position is equal to get first square position, and this is another function we're gonna add to our class, and I think this is gonna be the last function. So we're gonna capture the start position. We will implement this function in a minute. Let's first of all finish the set square position function. So right below I will just capture int column number is equal to 0, and then int row number is equal to 0, and then for each var square in square list. So we want to loop through all of the square if the row number plus 1 is more than the current game data dot selected board data dot rows. Let's open the brace. We want to do the column number plus plus, and then row number is equal to 0. Okay, and then below this f statement we want to put the var position x is equal to start position dot x plus offset dot x times column number, and then var position y is equal to start position dot y minus offset dot y times row number. Okay, and then finally we can set the square position. So square dot get component transform dot position is equal to new vector 2, and then we want to pass the position x, and then position y. Okay, and then last line is row number plus plus. So there is our last thing we need to do in this class, which is implementing the get first square position function. So right below this function I will add private vector 2, and then let's copy this name, get first square position, and then let's capture a few variables. So first one will be var start position is equal to new vector 2, first value will be 0f, and then transform dot position, another will be var square rectangle is equal to square list at 0, get component sprite renderer dot sprite dot rect. I see I have an error here, so the start position should be new vector 2 0 transform position dot y. Okay, so make sure you put the y here, so it should be looks like that. Okay, then another variable will be var square transform. Transform will be equal to square list at 0 dot get component, and we want to get the transform, and then var square size is equal to new vector 2, and we want to pass 0f and then 0f. Okay, so now let's actually calculate this first position. So below I will put the square size dot x is equal to square rectangle dot width times square transform dot local scale dot x, and then square size dot y is equal to square rect dot height times square transform dot local scale dot y. Okay, and then calculate the midpoint. So var mid width position is equal to, let's open two curly braces, current game data dot selected board data dot columns -1 times square size dot x divided by 2 outside of the braces, and then times 0.01f, and then var mid width height is equal to, let's open two braces, current game data dot selected board data dot rows -1 times square size dot y, and then outside of the braces divide by 2, and then times 0.01f. Okay, we almost finish, and then start position dot x is equal to, and then let's use the ternary operator. So if the mid width position is not equal to 0, we're going to put the question mark, and then mid width position times -1 colon mid width position. So we're just basically checking if the mid width position is not equal 0, we're gonna get this position -1. Otherwise, if it's equal 0, we're gonna just get the mid width position. Okay, and then start position dot y is equal, it will be plus equal mid width height. So make sure you put this one plus equal, not just the equal. We need to add it. Okay, and then we want to return our start position. So that's it. So the get first position function is implemented, and this function is called from the set square position, and the set square position is called from the start function. So make sure you have those two functions called in the start function. And now we can save everything, and we can go back to Unity. Okay, so let's the project compile our code. And then let's go to our scenes folder, and then open the game scene. And then let's right click in our hierarchy, create empty, and I will call this game object words grid. Words grid. Let's move this object above the canvas, go to the scripts, and then grab our words grid script and drop it onto the game object. And now we need to initialize the variables. So first of all, we need to pass the current game data. So go to our resources folder, then data, and just grab this current game data and drop it into the current game data. Then grid square prefab, we're going to create this prefab in a second. Then we need to grab our alphabet data, so get the game alphabet and drop it into the alphabet data. The square offset, I will set it to 0.06, and then top position I will set to 4.55. Okay, you can use the same values as me, and later you can actually play with those values if you like. So now we need to create the grid square prefab. Let's right click in our hierarchy and then to the sprite. Okay, so we're gonna call this one grid square. Grid square. Let's actually initialize this grid square with some sprite. So go to our graphics, then to the normal folder, and I will just grab this A letter and drop it into the source image, into the sprite actually, so we can see the A letter displayed. Let's set the position to be 0.0.0, okay, and the scale to be 1. And now let's go to our scripts folder, grab the grid square and drop it into the game object. So make sure the scripts is attached to this object. And let's also add the box collider to this game object. So add component, box collider, and now we can save everything. So save. And actually, before we continue, let's go to our resources folder, and we're gonna create a separate folder for our prefabs. Right click, create folder, and I will call this folder prefabs. Let's open this prefabs folder and now grab our grid square and drop it into the prefabs. So this object should turn blue, and now we can delete this grid square from the scene. So I will just delete it. And now let's select our worlds grid, and we need to initialize our grid square prefab. So drag this grid square and drop it into the grid square prefab. Okay, so everything should be initialized from your worlds grid script. And now we can save everything. So file save. We can press play and see what's happened. Okay, so as you see, we have something displayed. So our code is working. We don't have any errors. No errors. So if you switch back to the scenes, as you see, our grid is created and everything is displayed, but is in the wrong position and is in the wrong scale. So there is something wrong in our code, and let's just compare this what we have here with our data. So if you go to the resources, puzzles, and then puzzle 1, so we have ZZBW, ZZBW, okay, so that's correct. And let's try from the bottom, WNVJ, WNVJ. Okay, so the letters matching, so KNG, KNG. So all of the letters are matching with what we see here. So as you see, this is exactly the same data. So let's just figure out what is actually happening, why it's not displaying properly on the screen. So let's stop the project. And if you select the worlds grid, as you see, our worlds grid is actually moved on the position -0.7 and so on. So let's just set this position to be, for the worlds grid to be 0. On the Y, let's set it to be 1. And let's set on the Z to be 0. Okay, let's try to play again. Okay, that didn't help much, but I think it just moved it a bit. So there is one error we need to fix in our words grid class. So go to the scripts folder and then open the words grid. And then go to the function get first square position. So when we calculating the mid width position and then mid width height value, we are using only two braces. So in this line, there's a problem because we multiplying 1 by the square size x and then 1 by the square size y. So we need to put additional parentheses over here and over here. So basically what we want to do, we want to first of all, we want to minus the 1 from the columns and then we want to multiply it by the square size. And we want to do the same for the line below. So make sure you put these additional parentheses in. Okay? So this should fix the issue with the positions. So make sure you have those two lines of code exactly as I have here. So you need to have three pair of the parentheses in both lines. So let's save everything now here, and then let's go back to Unity. So now when you press play, as you see, we have the position is right, but the scale is still not right. So actually the scale is fine, but we need to change the viewport on the camera. So click on the main camera and set the size to 10, not to 5, okay? Make sure it's 10 on the size. So now when you press play, as you see, everything is displaying properly. And then if you go to our resources, data and the puzzles, you see all of the letters are matching with the letters which we have in the editor. So if you stop the game and if you, let's say, put 20 by 20 and make sure you put the fill up with random, so you have all of the letters in, and then if you press play, as you see, we have our grid displayed regarding of the size and is always visible in our viewport. So if you, let's say, let's go crazy and go 50 by 50. Oh, no. If you put too big size, your Unity will start lagging. So just be reasonable with that. So as you see, 50 by 50, fill up with random. Let's see how this one's gonna look. As you see, it's too small, but you still can see the grid is fit, okay? And we have 50 by 50 grid displayed. But of course, this is not going to be playable because on your mobile phone is going to be too small. So yeah, that's I think this implementation works fine now. So let's get with 10 by 10 maybe. 10 by 10, fill up with random, and then as you see, every single grid is spawned under our words grid. So the scale is appropriate to the size, and I think this implementation works fine. So I know this episode and the previous one was a bit code intensive. If you have any issue with any of this implementation which we have done, please let me know in the comments below, and I will try to help you out to fix your issue. So in the next episode, we're gonna start to actually implementing the gameplay. So we'll be able to select the square, highlighted the words, and we need to, of course, display the words, the searching words below. So that's it for today. Again, if you like this series, please consider subscribe to this channel and leave the like. If you have any more suggestions, please let me know in the comments, and of course do let me know if you prefer this Visual Studio or the Rider, or it does not really matter for you. So thanks for watching, and I will see you again in the next episode.